Welcome to another Numismatic Notes with Benjamin. I am Benjamin, and today I'm going to share with you the 25 or 26 banknotes that I shared at a recent Coin Club meeting. We've started a Southside Club meeting, and it's still kind of new, and we're building up the membership from new sources on this side of town. And unfortunately, we didn't have an exhibit or a program for our October meeting, and so with a few days, I agreed to do one, and I thought, well, the funnest one would be to give an overview, and my favorite kind of overview, since I have enough banknotes, and not everybody does, but I went to my banknotes and I started skimming through them, and I selected a banknote with the letter A, and a banknote with the letter B and C, and so on, until I was able to come up with a banknote for every letter except for X. And I presented it with all of its warts, simplicity, expense, or, uniqueness to this body of mainly coin collectors, if I'm honest. But, it was still a pretty interesting little meeting, and I thought you guys might want to see the notes that I shared with everybody at the class meeting. So, without any further ado, except that I do want you to sign up and click that button so that you are a subscriber, and then watch all my other videos and share and recommend with everybody else. We will begin this program. First note I'm going to show you, representing the letter A, we have a lovely Algerian 10 dinar, and it's one of my favorite dinars because it shows me a peacock and it shows me a ram, in this case a grapevine, but it always makes me think of the ram that God sent to Abraham so he didn't have to sacrifice Isaac. And on the back of the note we have an older gentleman, we have an olive or a grape orchard. Grapes here, maybe olives there, and then, some sort of industrial scene in the back. That was the A note. The B note was from Barbados. And this Barbados note is a nice little note. There's a flying fish on the front and on the back. A port scene. What is most interesting about this note was that this is a plate note. So what that means is if you go to the Standard Catalog of World Coins, and you can stop the video and do this if you want, and look up this particular note, you should see a note that has a C16104-106, because my note is the one that they took the picture of for the catalog, and that makes it a plate note. The C note is represented by a Cambodian 20,000 reals, and it is also a plate note, but it is also a specimen note. So the club got to see some interesting things. Now, you may have seen some of these notes in some of my videos, and that's okay. I just wanted to give you an idea of a quick way to do an overview or a short program with a group of people. Kind of a neat note. This is a different view of Angkor Wat than one would normally see. The D note represented by this lovely 1,000 franc of Djibouti. And I like this for several reasons. I like the textile design. I like the native in traditional dress. I like the trains in the middle. And on the back of the note, we have some lovely acacias. Right here, as you can see by the thorns, and some lovely ships of the desert right there in the middle. Representing E was one of my more recent African acquisitions, this East African shilling that shows King George VI. Most people who are watching this have a lot of King George VI notes in their collection, if they have a lot of Queen Elizabeth II notes in their collection, because on many of her notes she is shown wearing a little medal that is the face of her father, and that's the family honors that are a gift of the monarch to other members of the family. A lot of y'all have seen this note too. This note represents the letter F, and this is my Marie Curie damage note that an unnamed banknote business tried to sell me as an Unk note, in spite of the fact there's staples. There's a staple hole right there, and there's a crossfold right there, and there, and the corners have been all crossed. So Still a beautiful note, and one I'm not unhappy to have in my collection. But I'm looking forward to the day where I don't have to be looking sideways whenever I come across that note. E is represented by this East Germany banknote, and I've done a video on this one too. And this is the sad note with the damaged faces on the people. I mean, it's still a better engraving than I could personally do, but I'm just like, yeesh. The buildings are a lot nicer on this note than the faces of the family. Let's just put it that way. The school side's a little bit better, but there's problems with the kids. I mean, maybe it's rickets. I don't know, but interesting note. Let's move on to H, and I recently did a video with this one, and it was very well received. It's a Haitian note. Haitian notes aren't necessarily hard to get unless they have the picture of this young man on it. And I say young man because this was Baby Doc Duvalier, and he was the 19-year-old son of Papa Doc when he became the president for life of Haiti. Fortunately or unfortunately for the Haitian people, he absconded with most of the nation's wealth at a certain point and left Haiti to their own devices, and they have not risen to the occasion. Sad to say. I is represented by a 50,000 reel of Iran, and a lovely Hallmark, poem appears on one side of this banknote, while the Man of Nightmares appears on the other side. We're going to move over to J in an extremely beautiful blue, vividly rich blue-green, maybe even a little purple if you look hard enough. This is a 10, I think, dinar from Jordan. And, yep, and on this side, it's one of the newer families of dinars from Jordan. A splendid Roman-style Colosseum appears on this side. Blue flowers to the right and left. Just a beautiful note. This is a note that deserves a deep dive. Moving to K, which is represented by South Korea, and their Olympic 2001 appears on this side. Very colorful, very interesting, shows lots of unusual sports, like skiing, gun shooting, hockey, curling, speed skating, toboggan, and on the back side of the note, a very famous artwork of Chosun Dynasty, a tiger with a pine tree. And a tiger like this, it's almost like this artist invented the Cheshire Cat, maybe 150 years before the Cheshire Cat was invented by the guy who wrote Alice in Wonderland. But it's still a beautiful note, and not terribly expensive. So if you want a special commemorative Olympic note, then this might be one for you to consider getting. L is represented by Libya, and this is a Libya one. I think it's a dinar. Let's see. Ooh, it doesn't say. It's a 1 dinar or a 1 something anyway. And they were proud enough that they didn't want to do anything in English on their notes. And, I can accept that. But I wish I could remember exactly the denomination of this note. I am somewhat caught up by the smiling dictator who appears on the right-hand side of the note with an enormous headdress, which is far more substantial than anything I've ever seen on a Bedouin in person. And I've seen several Bedouins in person because I've spent some time in the Middle East. Gorgeous note. And it's really funny because if you get into Libyan banknotes and you move down to like the half pages, they have all these walking irrigation that makes me think of my childhood in the panhandle of Oklahoma and southwest Kansas. M is represented by Macedonia. This note would no longer be Macedonia. In fact, it would be North Macedonia, but this particular note is a Macedonian note. And I love this note because of the vibrant color of the Archangel. And I believe this is it's either the Archangel Gabriel or the Archangel Michael. Wait, was Michael an Archangel? Anyway, it's an archangel, and it's definitely a note that I would put in with saints because you can see the halo. But you see this in a lot of Eastern religions, and a lot of my fans might have forgotten that Christianity is an Eastern religion, so the halo we see around Christian saints is really not much different than the aura you will see around a Buddhist saint, a Hindu saint, and maybe even some Muslim saints if they were to actually depict them on banknotes. But it's a fascinating thing to have a religion with common roots and not consider that it would be the case. A very old coin appears on the back of that note, representing the letter M. N, represented by this £5 of Northern Ireland, a £5 that specifically commemorates George Best, a soccer great. And on the front of this note, it looks like we have Giant's Causeway, and it looks like we have a bridge and a boat. A nice little note. And on the back, we have the autograph of and scenes of George Best, who had a hard life off of the soccer field, believe it or not, and sadly. I really wish this note had the real signature of George Best, but he passed before this note was ever even issued. We're going to move on to the letter O, which is represented by Oman. Oman has some of the most beautiful, colorful notes of any in recent times, and I wish you could just see this hologram over here in this strip here. See-through hologram, optical variable ink, just a gorgeous note. So much going on this note. Definitely deserves a deep dive of its own. Moving from the letter O, we're moving to P, and this note of Portugal represents the P notes. This is a 500 escudos, and it's just a lovely note. I've always loved the sea themes of Portuguese banknotes, and this is no exception. You see over here a map of the world as Portugal knew it. There's Africa, there's Europe, and y'all, there is Brazil, because Portugal had discovered its existence way before the Treaty of Tordesillas. I think they were pretty sneaky because they got the Pope to give them all the land after a certain space. And I think it's because they knew that there was already a huge continent that they could get. Anyway, bless the Portuguese. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have a whole lot of things. And I appreciate that they were the first to do it. This is an odd denomination, 22 real from Qatar or Qatar, and it represents the letter Q in this miscellany of banknotes. This banknote actually celebrates the World Cup, and you have one of the stadiums here. You have the logo there, or you have the World Cup trophy there, and then you have the logo of the World Cup right there. Modern and ancient scenes from Qatar. Back of the note shows another stadium, which I think is fascinating because it actually looks like a giant Bedouin tent. Here's the planet Earth, and I didn't look carefully to see on it, but it doesn't appear that Israel's been obliterated off of it. And interestingly enough for this note is it's one of the few notes that have cursive on it. So a lovely representation for the letter Q. We're going to move to the letter R, and we have a 500 Lee. And this note depicts Constantine Brancusi, who is a famous modern artist from Romania. And that's not his signature on the left. That's the signature of another famous Romanian, Nadia Comăneci, who is a work colleague of one of my good friends who also collects banknotes. So I took this note to her. I gave her one, and I asked her if she would sign the other. Because, it's funny, but most people don't really have little tiny souvenirs of their life sometimes when they've just completely up-staked and moved on. So she was grateful to get this note. And I was grateful to get her autograph. And here's just scenes that relate to Brancusi here on the back of this note. It's a nice graphic note. S is represented by Singapore, and I chose to use a $50 bill of Singapore that has a lovely little coastal vehicle. There's fish. There's lathe work with bright colors. It's a nice, pleasing little note. It's circulated, but it's hard to tell when you have it in a nice little holder. But on the back, we've got a dragon. Here be dragons, y'all. And here be flowers. And here be a city line. And there's a beach. And there's a bridge. A Benjamin Bridge. So I just had to include this one because it has my name on it. Moving to T, and Thailand is represented by the 60 baht, commemorative, celebrating the end of the 5th-year cycle of King Bhumibol Adulyadej. And a cycle consists of the 12 years of the Asian zodiac. So 60, turning 60 is the end of the 5th 12-year cycle. And so we have a lovely little note with the king here and the trappings of royalty, royal Garuda, his robe, his chakri robe, his crown, the constitution in a silver dish. And it looks like a microphone so that he can sit there and speak to his subjects. Lovely little, y'all, I'm forgetting my words. Don't ask me to use my words. Oh, hologram. And then on this side of the note, we have the king visiting his people here. Another one of the rural dams that Thailand is famous for. And over here, people in a paddy planting probably what is rice. And I could swear that the scene I have of this man on another banknote was taken at the same time, because he's wearing the same coat. He's got a map. He's got a camera around his neck and a pen. And I suspect that this is just some different images from the same photo session. I should really do some research and see if that's the case. Moving on to the letter U, this is the United Arab Emirates, one of my new favorite countries. There's it's a 5, and if you look at the serial number, it's written in microencoding, which is what is along the bottom of all of your checks. Watermark with the emir, an older palace or fort, and then on the back, an even older fort. So it's a basic note. It's very pretty, though. And I look forward to getting the other notes in that series. And this note is represents the letter V, and I've always called it Vanuatu. But I had a friend who pronounced it the other day, and I love the way they said it. So I may try to say it differently, and who knows, it may be the right way. And he pronounced it as Vanuatu. So this is a 500 Vatu of Vanuatu. You have a seashell see-through, and you have the arms that commemorate the games, I guess, of the Pacific. And you have their arms. And then on the back of the note, you don't really have any sports, surprisingly enough, but you do have a ceremony of sorts. So I'll leave it at that. We're going to move on to a West African state to represent the letter W. And this West African state is a specific issue for Senegal, and that's what the K represents, Senegal. And it's a lovely, colorful note, very vibrant and very beautiful. This over here was a post-it note that came on the note. When I bought this from the Krause catalog collection, this kind of signal here meant that this was a plate note, or it had been taken for use in the catalog. It doesn't necessarily mean I found it in the catalog yet, and it may be a plate note, I just haven't done anything with it. But on this side, we have another little lovely image of a local from West African states. Y is represented by Yemen, and I've always loved this tree here. This is a dragon's blood tree, so even if it doesn't really have a dragon on it, this note could go in a dragon collection because it is a dragon blood tree. And it's a special kind of tree, and one where the sap is bright red. And I think I don't know how difficult this tree is, but there may be some issues with it, and it may be why it's called a dragon tree. This side of the note shows a lovely set of terraces. And one of the reasons I've always wanted to buy a farm in Portugal is because it's really easy to buy farms that are terraced in Portugal. I think you can go to Asia and find terraced farms as well, but if you buy it in Portugal, you stand a chance of understanding your neighbor and having a comfortable life because of the familiarity of a Western life. That's not to say I wouldn't take a farm if somebody gave me a farm in Asia. And we're finally going to have a Zimbabwe 100 trillion banknote represented by this Zimbabwe and the letter Z. The 3 over here is just the price I originally paid for it. And on the back of the note we have, oh my gosh, we have a cow, or at least a bovine family member, probably a water buffalo. And then we have a waterfall. Okay, so be honest with me. What'd you think? If you'd have been in the audience at the Coin Club meeting, is this a program you would have enjoyed with a little bit more information from me? I don't think I did too bad for what it was. I did speak slower and I did answer a lot more questions in it. And as the survey goes, it's pretty cool. I covered a lot of the continents. I covered a lot of banknotes with a lot of color. I didn't have any duplicate nations in there. Some very fantastic designs on the banknotes. An autograph note, a plate note, specimen notes. It's a pretty good survey. I call it a miscellany because it is a group of things that all have something in common, in this case, banknotes. And in this case, my banknotes. I am Benjamin. This is Numismatic Notes with Benjamin. Please cuss or discuss with me, comment, share, and let's get me monetized. You guys have a great day. A jewel of a day.